Continuing with sine, cos, and tan on the Cartesian plane, we're now going to talk about something that has some pretty good repercussions for next year, the idea of a unit circle. What we're going to do in the unit circle is we're going to say the radius is 1. All right, so you can picture all of the triangles we've done so far, shrinking them to having a radius of 1. All right, and if that's the case, and sine is y over the radius, and radius is 1, then sine just becomes the y value. Cos will be x over r, right, adjacent over hypotenuse. R is 1, so cos will become just x, and then tan actually becomes y over x still. That doesn't change. Okay, now using that, I want us to look at a couple of significant points here. All right, we're going to look at these 4 places. Knowing our angles in standard position, this is 0 degrees, this is 90 degrees, this would be 180 degrees, this is 270 degrees, and this one is actually also 360. Okay, so in each of those cases, the reference angle is 0 or 90 degrees. So if you go to 0 degrees, the reference angle is 0. If you go to 90 degrees, the reference angle is 90 degrees. Okay, and what we want to do is look at what the coordinates are at those points. In other words, what is the x value, what is the y value? Knowing that r is 1. Well, this point would become the point 1, 0. Up here, we would have the point 0, 1. Here you would have negative 1, 0. Here you'd have 0, negative 1. Now, why is that important? Well, let's take a look at a couple of these examples. What is sine of 0 degrees then? Knowing that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. What is the opposite length here? Well, if you can picture this triangle, this length is actually 0, and this is 1. So you have 0 over 1, which is 0. And if you remember, up here I said that sine is y. So sine is the y value. Okay? What is cos of 0 then? Well, cos is the x value. It's 1. Okay, trying a few more of those. What would sine of 90 be? 1. What would cos of 180 be? Negative 1. And let's try a tan. Okay, let's try tan of 90 degrees. Okay, it's the y value divided by the x value. What's 1 divided by 0? Undefined. Okay, now I'm going to give you a few of those to practice shortly, but let's look at a couple other significant angles. The next one we're going to look at is the 45-degree angle. So picture this being 45 degrees. All right, and then we'll go into this quadrant. If again we want 45 degrees, let me just redo that here. If we want this to be 45 degrees, and we want this one to be 45 degrees, so they're all related angles, all have the reference angle of 45 degrees, what are those actual angles? 45, 135, 225, and 315. In case you're wondering how did I get that, it's 360 minus 45. Alright, if you're wondering how I got that one, this would be 180 plus 45. Okay, so those are the angles. Now, what we want to do is figure out what is the x and the y value there. Well, let's go over to this triangle with this 45-degree angle, knowing that the hypotenuse is 1. All right, when you look at a triangle like that, knowing this is 45, this is 90, this one must also be 45 because they have to add up to 180 degrees. Okay, and that means that x and y are actually the same length. Why are they the same length? Well, this and this are the same angle, so this is an isosceles triangle. So if x and y are the same, and I set up Pythagoras here, I could just write that x is the same as y. And so I get 2x squared is 1. X squared is 1 over 2. So x is the root of 1 over 2, which I can simplify. Now, if I take the root of 1, I get 1. But the root of 2 I cannot simplify. But I can rationalize it. If I rationalize it, I get root 2 over 2. So you need to know these two are the same. You're going to see them both. One's rationalized, one's not. I think we'll probably use this one this year, but next year you'll see the other one just as much. Okay? So that's the x value, 1 over root 2, or root 2 over 2. And remember that x and y were the same, so they would both be root 2 over 2. Now, going into quadrant 2, what are they? Well, here's the great news. They're exactly the same, because they have the same reference angle. What's different? In quadrant 2, x is negative. Going into quadrant 3, again, they're both the same, but what's negative? X and y. In quadrant 4, again, root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, and what is negative in quadrant 4? Okay, thinking about cast, cosine is positive, that means sine is negative. Okay, so let's try a few of these. What is sine of 45 degrees? Root 2 over 2. What is cosine of 225 degrees? Root 2 over 2. Negative. What is tan of 315 degrees? Okay, well this one, I'm going to show you once and then you're going to know from now on. If you have root 2 over 2 divided by root 2 over 2, now sine is negative, this is going to be 1. And since one of them is negative, you get negative 1. Okay? Let's go to the next significant angle, the 30-degree angle. Okay, so we're going to make the reference angle 30 in each quadrant. And if we do that, we should be able to figure out the 4 angles. Quadrant 1, it's always the same as the reference angle. Quadrant 2, 180, take away 30, this is 150 degrees. 180 plus 30, this is 210 degrees. And 360 take away 30 is 330 degrees. Okay, well let's take a look at this triangle. Here it is, 30 degrees. I know this is 1, and I'm trying to figure out the x and the y value. Well, if you use your calculator and take sine of 30, you actually find out that this is a half. Okay, so I'm actually going to give you that value, but now I can show you how to get the x value, because x squared plus a half squared equals 1 squared. X squared plus 1/4 equals 1. So x squared equals 3/4. And if I take the square root, I get the square root of 3 over the square root of 4, which is 2. So this location, the x value is root 3 over 2. The y value is a half. Quadrant 2, exactly the same except cosine is negative. Quadrant 3, they are both negative. And quadrant 4, only sine is negative. Okay, so trying a question. What is sine of 30? It's a half. What's cos of 210? It's negative root 3 over 2. Okay, and tan, let's do 330. So you would take the y value, -1/2, divided by √3/2. Okay, now if you want to write that out, 1/2 divided by √3/2 is -1/2 times 2/√3, and you end up with -1/√3. Which, if we rationalize the denominator, would give you -√3/3. Okay, you should know that these are the same. All right, and there's one more angle. Now the good news is we don't have to do a lot of thinking about this one. I'll show you why in a second. If this is 60 degrees, let's put that into each quadrant. So this is 60. This is 60. And this is 60. Notice it's always from the x-axis. So quadrant 1 would be 60. This one would be 180 take away 60. This one will be 180 plus 60. This will be 300 take away 60. Okay, and if you draw this triangle in and we examine it, you should notice something. It's exactly the same triangle but flipped on end. So now this is 1/2, excuse me, and this will be √3/2. Excuse me. All right, exactly the same except these values are flipped. Okay, so there is some values. Now, this might bother you a little bit. I actually need you to memorize them. All right? Now, the good news is you really only have to memorize quadrant 1 because as you just saw, all the values are the same, and we'll be able to use the idea of reference angle to figure out the other 4 quadrants. So you will have to memorize this. Okay? You should be able to do this. Write down 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90, and you should be able to give me the x and the y values for each one without thinking too much. You should have them like as quick as you can. In fact, I would put this little picture you have right here on your phone, so every time you pick up your phone, this is your screensaver. This is what you look at. All right, so when you have some free time, you know, and it's not like you guys don't have a lot of free time right now. If you're sitting there going, what am I going to watch on Netflix? You should look at your phone really quickly and memorize. You know, if you're spending some throne time on the great white throne up in the bathroom, you should be memorizing this. This is what you should be doing now. You need this for grade 12. And when I say need, I mean you need it like you need a pencil and a pen. You can't do grade 12 without this. So I need you to memorize this. I would challenge you, if you're struggling, you can look up on YouTube. There's something called the finger trick for trig. I'll try to maybe find that video. It's helpful, but again, at the end of the day, you just need to memorize them. Okay? So let me show you the kind of stuff you're going to need to do, and then I will give you the homework to try. All right, it says for each question below, draw the terminal arm. Let's do that. Where's cos 270? Here is the terminal arm. That's 270 degrees. Okay, then it says state the quadrant 1 reference angle. Okay, so the reference angle is the closest angle to the x-axis. So really we could go here or we could go here. It doesn't matter. But the reference angle is 90. Okay, and then state the exact value. So in other words, what is cos of 270? Well, don't think cos of 270. I just told you should memorize this square. So if we're looking at 90 degrees, what is the cosine value? It's 0. So you can just put 0. All right, now you would compensate if that was, it's 0, so there's no positive or negative, but you would have to look at your picture and decide should it be positive or negative. Okay, let's try another one. tan of 330. So first of all, where is 330 degrees? It's about here. Okay, that's 330 degrees. What is the reference angle? To the closest x-axis, this is 30 degrees. So in your head, you're going, all right, what is tan of 30? Okay, and you're going, well, I know that tan is sine over cos. Sine of 30 is a half. Cos of 30 is root 3 over 2. If I multiply this, I end up with 1 over root 3. Now, I would say you should memorize that tan of 30 is 1 over root 3. I think you should have this memorized. I don't think you should need to do this. Okay? Now, is that my answer? All good, except I quickly go and check this picture and remember this, that the only thing that's positive down here is cosine, so this must be negative. Okay? Let's try another one. 240 degrees. Should be about there. What's the reference angle? The reference angle is 60. So now I'm thinking sine of 60. Sine of 60, I've memorized that. I know this is root 3 over 2. And then quickly I'm going, all right, cast. Only tan's positive down there, so sine must be negative. All right. Now I just drew this little thought bubble in here. Make sure you don't do something like this. Make sure you don't write sine of 240 equals sine of 60 equals root 3 over 2 equals negative root 3 over 2. This is a whole bunch of lying in here. These do not equal. Okay, I don't want you to write stuff like that. If you need to figure out, do scratch work like this, like this, like this. This is the answer, and you should always have that next to what you're being asked to find. So if I look at this one, I need to write my answer here. What is my answer? Well, let's sketch 135. Here's 135. What's my reference angle? The reference angle is 180, take away 135, this is 45 degrees. So I'm thinking sine of 45. Sine of 45 is root 2 over 2, and I know in quadrant 2 sine is positive. Okay? So you can now do some homework. Alright, your homework is a worksheet that I have posted. Alright, and that worksheet you should do, let me just quickly check, it should be part A. Okay, and I think it's called worksheet 6.2. It's the first worksheet listed in this unit under trig. Okay, and I would like you to do all of them. I believe there are 24 questions. Yeah, numbers 1 to 24. Okay, so practice that, and then we'll continue this lesson next.